Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad that you could join us tonight at our meeting. My name is Roseanne Hassett, and I am the Executive Director of the American Civil Defense Association. Before we begin, I am obligated to read our legal disclaimer. Nothing in this presentation should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The opinions of the viewers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of TACDA. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. All right. We are delighted to have Jonathan and Kylene Jones from the Provident Prepper with us tonight. The topic they'll be presenting is preparing winter without power. Jonathan and Kylene have a popular YouTube channel called The Provident Prepper. They also have a website at theprovidentprepper.org. Jonathan is a licensed civil engineer and an avid enthusiast of alternative energy sources, especially solar and wind power. He's served in many capacities for TACDA and has developed the city emergency plan in his own community as a city council person. Kylene has an educational background in business management as well as in family studies. She has also served on the advisory board and on the board of directors for TACDA. Kylene has also served as a past editor of the Journal of Civil Defense. She now focuses on writing quality content for the Provident Prepper. Our presentation will go about 45 minutes, and afterwards we will have about a 15-minute question and answer period. Please hold your questions or comments for the end of the presentation, and we will have a 15-minute question answer period after that. So Kylene and Jonathan, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are excited to be here, and we are happy to be able to share this information. This is timely because we have, even though it's warm out right now, we've got winter coming on soon. And I like to do this presentation in September because there's still enough time that people can make some changes, get some things fixed, and prepare for winter. And hopefully we do that with the grid, but if we ever don't, we need to be prepared to take care of business. So when the power goes out, it's not just an inconvenience, it can become actually life-threatening. And it doesn't matter if it's a storm and, infrastructure failure, any kind of an outage, we need to be prepared. And this goes for everybody in those warm climates too. If you think back to the 2021 polar vortex that hit Texas in the south, that hit with tremendous force and surprise, and those people struggled. So think about this a little bit. Everybody, this applies to everyone. Today, we're just going to talk about some of the essential preparations you need to get through this kind of a situation and do it with a smile on your face. And Mama always has a smile on her face, and you really want to listen to her because she's the one that has all the excitement. I'm the engineer that was born without a personality.
I'm going to tell you about when I didn't have a smile on my face, actually.
Yes, she will. Anyway, let's move ahead. Let's talk about some important principles. And of course, you've all seen this, the rule of threes: 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. We kind of need to get our priorities straight, but you notice 3 hours without shelter can be very dangerous for us. In the wrong conditions, 3 hours might be more than we can handle. So we need to be aware of that. Let's also talk about principles of heat loss, because that's what we're talking about tonight. The first principle is that of conduction. We lose heat through conduction. If we sit on a cold rock when we're up in the mountains, that's pulling heat out of us. So conduction is one method. The second is convection, which is heat loss due to air movement. And we all know how we feel if we're out in a cold wind. It feels so much colder than the actual temperature. Number three, radiation. We're all radiating out into the environment all the time. So all the time we're losing energy. And in normal situations, we're replenishing that very easily. A little more difficult in a grid down winter situation. But that's one way that we lose our energy, is through radiation. Respiration is another one of those. So when we're breathing in and out, we're breathing out warm, moist air, bringing in colder air. So that is cooling us down. We need to remember all of these as we think about this risk. And the Number 5 is evaporation. Obviously, when we're wet, we get cold much faster. That evaporation process pulls the heat out of us much faster.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the signs of hypothermia, because I will tell you that in our little experience, I got hypothermia inside my own home. So we just want you to understand what it is. So when you first have the initial signs of hypothermia, you're shivering and you get groggy and you get confused. But you still have a normal breathing and pulse. But the danger signs that it's worsening is the shivering gets violent, right? Or you can't, or it stops altogether. But you have the inability to think and pay attention. You don't know how to get yourself out of that situation. Um, and then the severe signs like shivering stops altogether, and it just doesn't end well. So we want to avoid that. With all the things that we're doing, we're going to avoid it. And there's treatment for hypothermia, which you need to learn, but we're not going to talk about that in today. The other risk that we have with getting too cold is frostbite, and it can do a lot of damage. So we want to make sure that we are very proactive and don't put ourselves in the situation where either of these things can happen. So we want to talk a little bit about an experiment. So we're kind of crazy. I'm more crazy than John is, but
Debatable.
no, yeah, I'm more crazy than you are. Anyway, so when we were first getting into teaching emergency preparedness, I'm like, I can't teach something that I've never done. So we decided in the middle of January that we were going to turn our power out, and we learned a lot. So the first thing that happened to us is day one, the high was 18 degrees outside and the low was 1 degree. Inside the house, even without any of the heat, we were 51 degrees. So it was cold. Don't get me wrong. It was cold in the house.
Normally we would have it at about 65. So that first day, we dropped a lot.
You notice we have it at 65 because he won't let me keep the heat up to 68. I'm just
Actually, I do, but
okay. But on this day, we decided we were going to start implementing all of the things that we had learned, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we set up tents. So in our family area, we set up these 2 little pup tents. There was a Winnie the Pooh tent for I can't remember if it was for the girls or the boys.
I don't remember.
But the other one was a Mickey Mouse tent. These were $15 clearance tents. They weren't very expensive. We put sleeping bags, really good sleeping bags in there, and the kids were dressed in blanket sleepers and warm things. And setting up the tent did a few things. So it increased the warmth, but it also provides privacy when you're all together. And you can hang out in there. If there's one piece of advice that I would give to everyone is to make sure that you do this. We just filmed a video for our YouTube channel, The Provident Prepper, and it was all about this kit that we made for our young, newly married college kids that is named Buster. And one of the things it has in it, it's a pup tent, so that it's a 2-person tent, so that they can have this, because that made all the difference. I'll tell you that when that first night, I only sleep in my own bed, right? I'm one of those. And so I went to bed with John and we had like 5 blankets piled on top of us. And the kids were all tucked away in these little tents. And in the middle of the night, I just sat up in my bed and I knew my kids were dead and that I'd killed them because of this stupid cold experiment. And I went out there and I unzipped the tent and I got this huge whoosh of hot air, and the kids were laying on top of their sleeping bags. Just, they were toasty warm in there. So if there's one thing to remember from all this, make sure you set up a tent. And it doesn't have to be a tent. Do you remember when you were a kid and you built forts? So even like blankets over the kitchen table and sleeping underneath there, or bunk beds, putting blankets over the top so that you could sleep in that lower bunk and have that air all in there. That microenvironment, super important. On day 2, the high was 18 degrees and the low was -1. And inside the house, it was still 51. You notice what Jonathan is reading. He's such a geek.
Yeah, such a geek.
Such a geek. Dad was okay. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And the kids were totally just fine. I was not. Day 3, the outside temp was 21 degrees, the high, and the low was 12 degrees, but the inside temp had gone down to 49. And this is our little Sam. And literally, you could see our breath in the house. It was cold. We did have on day 3, we decided to go ahead and have some alternative methods. Oh, but I should talk about this first. So back here, I decided I was going to take a shower. And because I still had to go out in normal society, right? I had to run kids back and forth to school and all that. And I took a shower, but of course I couldn't like dry my hair. I didn't have any real way to get warm. And pretty soon I started just shaking and I couldn't control my shaking. And I couldn't think straight. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that I was an idiot and I allowed myself to get hypothermia. So I went to a neighbor's house, sat in front of their fire in their warm house and warmed up. But it's very much a reality. So you have to be super, super careful. Oops, wrong way. But on this day, then we decided we were going to go ahead and use some alternative methods because before that we hadn't done anything. Um, a natural gas fireplace can be a really nice thing, but with ours, it didn't require any electricity to turn it on, but it didn't use the fan. And so we could sit up next to it, but it didn't put any of that warmth into the house at all. So it was nice that way. The natural gas fireplace that we have now requires electricity to run it. So make sure that you check that out and know if you have one, whether or not it'll work if you don't have power. And it's not very efficient. My best friend became the Mr. Buddy heater, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but that was my best friend. All right, on day 4, the outside temp was 28 degrees and the high, and then the low was 16, but the inside temp was 46 degrees. And so this is the day where I finally lost it. And I called Jonathan at work and said, I've done such a good job. I'm done. I'm not going to do it for this week. I've learned everything that I can learn. And he told me to put on a hat. If the man would have been there, he would be dead.
I wouldn't be here right
He
now.
would not be
She
here
would
right
be
now.
doing this alone.
Because he's at an office building in an interior office. And he said, well, I don't have the heat on in my office. Like, yeah.
Lame, huh?
Has totally lame, totally lame. Okay, but very honestly, I put on a hat and I was significantly warmer. Just the difference of putting on a hat. So that's definitely something that I would highly recommend. So by day 4, life had changed. The kids were still having fun. The kids were so resilient, and this was this huge adventure for them. I no longer cared what I looked like. And we were grateful for light and heat. One of the things, and we'll talk about the windows in a minute, but one of the things that I did wrong is that when we covered the windows, I covered them with cardboard. So the whole house was dark. And originally we were going to use all these flame light sources, but they're not very bright. And then the kids kept sticking anything flammable in them.
And the wife did too. She's kind of a pyro.
I am a pyro, but I didn't do that then. I did it one time when we were dating, when I was bored at some bank thing he took me to. Anyway, that's beside the point. But so I would be super careful about flame sources. I would avoid them if you can. The lessons learned, you can survive without electricity. Kids are fascinated by open flame. Cold results in survival mode. Pretty much I couldn't do anything except for exist. And for me, I'm a person who I just go and go and
Very
go
driven.
and go. And I couldn't do anything. So your productivity is minimal. So don't think that you're going to be able to accomplish things when this happens. And the combination of cold and dark is so depressing, just so depressing. Wear a hat. And then the other thing was store easy to prepare foods, because when we planned on doing this, I had all these great ideas about all this stuff I was going to go out and cook outside on the on all of our different alternative methods. And I'm like, no, I'm not going outside. I'm already too cold. And so make sure you've got easily to prepare foods. Lighting, we talked a little bit about that. It is so important for safety and for your psychological well-being. I can't express that enough. But non-flame sources are the best. And I know there are people that are going to disagree with me, but for me, I want something like the hybrid lights. We have a whole bunch of them. They are a bright light. They come in like the lanterns. John has a headlamp. There's all kinds of different lights that you would want to have. But, if you're trying to put candles in the middle of your table so that you can light up a room, one of those hybrid light lanterns does a significantly better job without the risk of fire, and without the risk of kids. And it's just a much brighter light. So that's what I would do. Now, tips and tricks to staying warm when the power is out. This is really important. So you want to make sure that you're staying hydrated. And we think about staying hydrated in the summer, but you've got to, if you're cold, you need to stay hydrated so that, because dehydration will thicken your blood and that will promote like not hypothermia, frostbite. So make sure that you drink a lot. Don't drink anything that's cold. And then eat foods that are high in protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Like all the things like that Snickers, this is the time you can get away with it. Keep your core warm. Your core is pretty much your neck to your knees. You want it because if this gets cold, it's going to draw all that heat from your extremities and put you at greater risk for frostbite. So make sure that you're doing that. Wear a hat, layer your clothing. That's huge. And then dress warmly from the beginning. Don't wait until you're chilled because it's so much harder to warm up than it is to stay warm from the beginning. Layer your clothing. One of the things that I learned with this is our little guy here. He was so cute. And you notice if you look at this picture, his cheeks are so red and his little fingers are like red and purple. But do you see how slobbered he is? We needed so many different changes of clothing for him to be able to stay dry because he just kept getting wet and he can't stay wet. So, gloves are great. Socks or slippers. Make sure that your clothing is loose so that you've got good blood circulation. Warm clothing and blankets. You would not believe how many blankets you need to be able to survive. You use them from everything from dividing rooms to putting over windows or keeping you warm. Blankets, blankets, blankets. I don't throw blankets away. I make sure that I just store. If there's something that's outlived its usefulness at our place, it gets stored in the garage. So make sure you have everything warm that you need. Mylar blankets, okay, we have them, but I think they're pretty much a waste because they only really reflect the radiant heat, or right? They keep the radiant heat in. And remember how many ways you can lose heat? So do I think you shouldn't have them? No, have them, but don't depend on them to keep you warm because they really won't. Foam, sleeping bags, and clothing. Now, this is interesting. We love Jim Phillips. We miss Jim. We miss Jim. He's a good man. But one of the things that he was instrumental in was designing the foam clothing. Lately, the K3 Core, the Game Changer, we've actually been experimenting with it because they're going to do a Kickstarter on it really soon. And it's been super fun because when I'm under that Game Changer, I'm thermal neutral. I'm not hot and I'm not cold. I'm just perfect and I sleep so much better. So I can tell you that it does make a difference. I don't know much about the Fortress clothing, but this is something that you really might want to investigate. Be active and exercise. You don't want to exercise so much that you sweat, but if you just get up and walk around or do a little bit of exercise, 20 minutes of exercise can keep you warm for so much longer. So don't sweat though, because remember what happens if you sweat. Yeah. And then warm up inside with hot drinks and foods. In this Buster kit that we made for our kids, we put hot cocoa, we put canned soup, we put packets of oatmeal, because those kinds of things, all you need to do is boil water and then they will warm you from the inside out. Hand and foot warmers are great. They do have a shelf life though. And what happens when they get old is that the chemical reaction slows down and takes much longer for them to heat up. So make sure that you don't, you want to use them. You don't just want to um, put them on the shelf, and make sure that you're careful that when you put them right next to your skin, don't do that because you can burn yourself with them. As far as bed warmers go, um, things like a heated rock, make sure it's like dry. If a wet rock can explode, but if while you're have your fire outside or whatever you're doing, if you have a way to like warm up a rock or put hot water into a hot water bottle and put it in next to you, it really makes a difference. Yeah, John talked about using heating pads. If you have a power station, you can warm up a heating pad. Special needs. Okay, we have people that we love in our lives that are very fragile. Make sure that you are very considerate of the special needs of a family member. If you are young and strong, being in 50-degree weather inside your house isn't going to hurt you. But if you are compromised, it can kill you. So be super careful and prepare accordingly.
And one of the really important things that we try and emphasize is community, getting to know your neighbors and checking on your neighbors. In these kinds of situations, make sure you're reaching out to others and make sure that they're okay. Now let's talk just a minute about preparing our homes. Again, right now is the time to do these kinds of things. Winterize your home, weather stripping, your insulation, check for cold air entry points. And if you've got some of those, seal them up, get them fixed right now. Make sure your chimney is clean and your vents.
And can I say something about that?
Yeah.
Seriously, make sure you do it. I have a friend who lost his home and everything he owned because of a chimney fire. So make sure that you're getting it cleaned.
Yep. And make sure your roof is in good repair. And if you've got some pipes that are on an outside wall that freeze, do something about that. Insulate them so that hopefully you can continue to use them and you don't end up breaking them. One resource I really like to emphasize is this DSIREUSA.org. And this is a database of all kinds of incentives out there. Whether it's solar energy or any of these, a lot of those are going away here real quick, but all these incentives by utility companies that can help you upgrade your insulation or your windows. You can also do 211, which is United Way. Get some help if that's what you need. See if you can get some help and some incentives to fix some of these things. It will make your utility bills go down and it'll make your home more resilient. And that's the part I'm most interested in, is making sure our homes are resilient and able to take care of us in these kinds of situations. Then if you are in this situation, you're going to close off all the rooms except one that you're going to heat. And things that you might want to think about in this process, is there a room that has a fireplace? And do you have firewood to do that, or a wood stove, some kind of a built-in heat source? Maybe you want someplace with sink and kitchen facilities. If you've got a nice south-facing, in the northern hemisphere, if you've got a south-facing room with a nice window that you can harvest some of that energy, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. But you want to avoid rooms with large windows and uninsulated walls because of the heat loss. Windows are terrible for heat loss. Normally, your walls in your house are an R13 to a R19, usually, sometimes a little more than that. But windows are an R1. Even some of the really new high-tech windows are only like an R2 at the most. And so you can see you're losing a lot of energy through those windows. So that's, and we'll talk a little bit about covering windows, but those windows are a great loss of heat. So you want to keep that in mind. And then we're just going to confine our emergency heat to one small area. We're not going to try and heat the whole house. And you're going to isolate that room with bedding or doors or whatever you can do to just isolate that little area that you can keep it a little bit warmer and take care of your family. Covering windows, we talked about that, and she mentioned the cardboard. The cardboard did make it dark in there. It was quite efficient. It worked actually pretty well as far as the insulating value, but we decided the cardboard being that dark just was not good. You can use blankets, cardboard. You can close blinds. Anything like that can help. Curtains. You can even spray the window with water and apply bubble wrap. little. We're just trying to add some insulation to keep that cold air from being such a problem. So we recommend that you store some heavy plastic. 6 mil is best if you can do it. And then some painter's tape. Some people say duct tape, but duct tape has a tendency to ruin walls and things. So we recommend painter's tape, and I like the really nice wide roll that you can cover some things with. Just a quick mention of passive solar heating. We talked about that south window. We built our house with a south-facing solarium. And so in the winter, we can open our insulated shades. We can let that really strong sun, when we have strong sun, if we don't have strong sun, we just probably will leave the shades closed. But we've got concrete floor here and a brick wall opposite where the windows are. So that mass helps to hold that heat. So when we get that really strong sun on those cold winter days, we can open that up. We can harvest all that nice warm energy. And then as soon as we lose that sun, those shades go back down to insulate because, again, windows just lose so much energy. I think that's probably enough on that. We're going to talk now just a little bit about some alternative heat sources.
All right, guys. First, carbon monoxide poisoning.
Safety. This is the safety guide. Listen, please.
You don't mess with this. And if you look at all the things that can happen, if you have carbon monoxide poisoning, it looks like so many other things that you might have, right? Headache, nausea, dizziness, all of that can be attributed to something else. But carbon monoxide is odorless, colorless, tasteless. You don't know that it's in there unless you have a monitor. So we highly recommend don't burn things inappropriately, right? And there's a lot of effects, but death is a big one. So make sure that you're careful. And it can take small levels of carbon monoxide build up over time in you. And it can take 3 or 4 weeks of building up to actually recognize that you have carbon monoxide poisoning. And there are people who present at the emergency room and actually aren't diagnosed appropriately because it looks like so many other things. So be careful. Just don't do stupid things. So there's a lot of different safety things, but pretty much without providing adequate ventilation, you don't want to burn anything larger than a candle. And never, ever use an appliance that's not rated for indoor use inside your house. It's a really good idea if you have an open flame to have one person awake watching that at all times. And if we want to make sure the ventilation's okay. If you feel drowsy or if you have a headache, it could be a sign of poor ventilation. We highly, highly recommend that everyone has working carbon monoxide and fire and smoke detectors. This is a little portable kitty carbon monoxide detector, and this is the one we have. We've actually given it to one of our neighbors as a gift because she has had so many issues. But it's super easy, and you can put it there. It's got that digital readout on it, which means like the one we have in our ceiling, it doesn't alarm until there's a certain threshold. But this tells you if it's going up at all. And that is super helpful. So if there's one thing that you should get for Christmas for people, this is it this year. Okay. Always be ready. This box is actually we have 3 of them.
Yes.
In our house. One is in the garage. One is right in my kitchen, right by my door here. And one is downstairs. But it's really important. You want to have fire extinguishers. You want to have fire blankets, first aid kits. And in here is also our evacuation plan. So just make sure that you are ready. Spend the money. These we got off an indoor yard sale, and it just tucked right inside of the wall. And so it didn't take much to install, but we always know where they are now. So fuel safety and storage. Store everything legally and safely. Don't be stupid. Understand the dangers and limitations of your fuel. Never store it inside your home. You only want to store fuel in something you can afford to have burned down, and be careful about the kids. The vented heaters are the best thing for emergency preparedness because all of those toxins that are created by burning go outside. And that's what we really want to to have happen. So think about, a fireplace, but that it's not limited to just those. Wood is such a great fuel because it's so safe to store. But it takes a lot of wood to keep a home warm for the winter. And I know here we have the storage life of 4+ years. And over time, the BTU value will go down, but it never really expires.
And we recognize that some of you don't have that opportunity to have a wood burning stove. There's EPA regulations and other things in place that you can't. But if you can, if there's any way that you can, it's just such a great option. And she's going to tell you about her favorite right here.
Okay, this is our wood burning cook stove. And because I had gotten cold, so cold when we did our experiment, when we first started to build this house, before it was even all the way framed, I had this stove delivered. I bought it from Canada and it is right here because I never wanted to be cold again. And this one has an oven in it, a warming place. And over here on this side, it has a water reservoir so that you can pour the water in and it'll heat water. Not everybody can do this, but this is one thing that I just think is amazing. Propane, such a great fuel. It has an indefinite shelf life, and it produces carbon dioxide as long as it's burning cleanly.
Dioxide, yes.
Yeah. It could produce carbon monoxide if there's not complete combustion, but you never want to take a propane device inside your house that's not rated for indoor use because propane is heavier than air. So what happens is if there's any small leakage, it doesn't just dissipate. It goes and it finds a low-lying spot until there's an ignition source and then it blows up. And so you don't want that to happen. So please, please, please be careful. But propane, seriously, amazing. This is the Mr. Buddy heater that became my best friend. And it can either use this little small green canisters, or you can use one of the 20-pound tanks, but you have to put the tank outside and you run the hose inside to your device. And one of the things about these devices is you're actually supposed to connect them outside because that's the time when you might have some propane leakage. So they don't work well at high altitudes. You could have some problems, but I think that they're just amazing. So alcohol is also a fabulous fuel because as long as there's complete combustion, it is safe to burn indoors and it has an indefinite shelf life. Now, I can tell you from our experimenting that like the isopropyl alcohol in the center stinks and it has a yellow sooty flame. Everclear, which is very expensive, burns really well and really clean. So for what that's worth, there are all kinds of devices you can use it in. The Vesta, if there's one thing that I would tell you to buy, it would be a Vesta heater cooker. And this is something new. We've got a couple of videos that we've made on it, but that top part comes off and you can use it as a cooker. But you want to tell them about the heater that's on top of there?
Yes, the heater is just a little, you can see the little fins on there, but all that heat under there, you've got 3 cans of safe heat, which is a chafing fuel. And then you've got this fan that doesn't, now I lost the name, but
Peltier?
Peltier device. And so it just runs off of that heat and this fan just blows this air out. It's not a super strong fan, but it's enough to move that air. So you've got all this nice warm air and it's moving that air, bringing in the cold air in the back and blowing out this warm air through the fins.
It is
it just works really, really well. It's an amazing little tool.
The safe heat, those little cans right there, they're 6-hour cans. So you do the math. Like this is really good. If you buy them online, they're fairly expensive, but Sam's Club sells them in their catering section, and it's a little bit over $20 for a case of 12 cans. That's 72 hours of burn time. And this is a fuel that's super safe to store. The only thing that I would caution is sometimes the lids are a little bit hard to get off. So if you have arthritic hands, make sure that you've got some type of a what do you call it? A pliers or
some pliers or some way, some opening device to help get those open.
But for anybody who doesn't have much money or lives in a small space, doesn't have a way to store fuel, this is totally the answer. I am a huge believer. We love this. Now let's talk a little about kerosene. Some people love kerosene, and because I'm the one talking, I get to tell you I don't like it. um, and it's in some ways it's a great fuel if you're using it in a vented device that's vented to the outside. That's great, but it produces carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. And when I first started prepping, I bought a bunch of kerosene cook stoves and things like that, and I put one on the kitchen counter, and I started using it, and my little guy who has asthma, like he just started not being able to breathe. And I was like, whoa, I thought it was okay because grandma did it, right? But my personal opinion is I don't use kerosene. There's so many really other good options, but I also don't have a vented kerosene heater.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about, of course, generators. These are awesome devices to have, but you can't use them indoors and you can't use them in their garage. Um, we had a couple in Salt Lake that had their generator in their garage. They ran the cord through the door, but there was enough carbon monoxide that came in that asphyxiated them. And so you just can't even use those. You've got to have it out away from your house. And then you're drawing attention to yourself and your resources. But generators are awesome. You will want to have a long cord so that you can run that, or you want to have that connected with a transfer switch so that you can run your house. But you also need to make sure you've had safely stored some fuel to run it, because
Safely.
otherwise it's just a
Safely.
really expensive lawn ornament. But one of my favorites is the portable power stations, and this is something that's just come on in the last few years, and I think it's totally amazing. I think these power stations provide such a great resource for preppers. Now, if you're asking me to help you design a plan, I think both of these are important. I think you use the portable power station as much as you can. You use as much solar as you can, because you're going to charge this. You're going to have this fully charged already, or close to it with household power. But then in a crisis situation, you're going to have those solar panels out, and you're going to be harvesting that solar energy. You can also use a fuel generator. And when we're talking about generators, I really love the inverter generators. They put out a cleaner wave sign. They are more efficient and they're quieter. So if you can, going back to the generators, if you can get an inverter generator, I think that's an awesome thing. It's super, super good to combine with a portable power station. And then you can charge this portable power station. If your solar's gone, if you end up in a really cloudy time and your power station's just running low, then you can break out the generator and you can run several things at a time. You can be charging this and also running your freezer, your fridge, other things, because those generators are going to put out enough energy to do all this stuff.
And
so
can I just say something? So John's mom really wanted a portable power station, and there were a couple of things she really wanted to be able to do. And quite frankly, she's on oxygen, but she wanted to run her sewing machine. And so John designed a system where it's on a cart, so she can pull it anywhere she needs, and then her sewing machine's downstairs. So he got the right size cord to make it to the sewing machine. So the one that we're showing here, it's a new one. It's the bug out from Grid Down, but there are all kinds of different sizes of them to meet whatever your critical loads are.
And in April of 2022, we did a TACDA presentation on backup power. So you can refer to that, go onto the website and go check that out, or check on our website. We've got several on backup power, including the power stations and generators, and deciding what's right for you. Get whatever's going to be best for your situation. Moisture management. This is something that sometimes we don't think about, because in our environment now, our moisture is largely managed either by exhaust fans or through things like mini splits, which pull out some of that moisture. But in a cold environment, and you've got everything closed up, of course, all of our breathing, we've got this moist, warm air coming out. If there's any kinds of situations where there's other water sources, all of these reduce the insulation effectiveness, and they can create some kind of dangerous situations. And we don't have to deal with it much in our, in normal life, but it can be, quite dangerous when we're dealing with really cold temperatures. So again, breathing and perspiration, cooking, if you're boiling water, that's putting some moisture in the air. If you've got wet clothing, you'll want to dry that in, not in your heated space, but in other space. And we live in a fairly dry environment where we are. And so we can just take things out on the line and dry them out. And even in the cold, they will dry actually faster than you can imagine. And so,
but Utah is unique that way.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to look at your own situation, but moisture is a problem that, and if you have the ability to run some kind of a dehumidifier, that's good. But obviously that takes a lot of energy. So it's just something to be aware of, and something that you'll need to think about, because things will get damp, and, condensation on the walls and on your bedding, and all kinds of things. So something to think about. We're trying to find a ventilation balance. You want to have a little bit of air exchange, but obviously we don't want all that cold air coming in, or we're defeating the purpose. So it's a balancing act. There's desiccants, things like that, but those are a little hard to deal with, and not super effective probably over time. You can collect some of that condensation on towels and things, take those towels out and put them on the line and dry them. And then just have a separate drying area where, not in your heated space, where you can get things dried out. So let's talk about some important principles. When the power goes out, first of all, we don't panic. Panic doesn't do us any good at all. Keep windows and doors closed to conserve heat. We had to teach our kids how to go in and out of the doors, because kids just throw the door wide open, and then, eventually it comes closed. But we had to teach them to open it just enough to slide through, out or in. And so that was a training thing that we had to do. Conserve fuel by warming only one room. Turn off lights and appliances. Obviously, if the power's down, then you're not using them anyway. And then just remember your clothing. That is your first line of defense when it comes to shelter, is your clothing. So think about your clothing and how you can layer that. Block the movement of cold air. You can use blankets and things to reduce inflow of cold air from outside. Cover your windows, and then you're just going to relax and have fun with it, right?
Yeah. Party time. Because I'm going to be warm, because I have that.
Yeah. So here's your checklist. Educate yourself and your family about cold weather survival. Prepare your home. That's a big one. Take some time to see what you can do to make your home more resilient. Prepare warm clothing, bedding, blankets, and remember those special needs, and remember your community. Remember your friends, your neighbors. Make sure everybody's okay. And practice is the key to all of this. We can't just learn it once and then throw it on the shelf. We need to practice. We need to think about it. And that will make us more prepared to deal with whatever comes our way.
All right. Now for question and answer. How did we do on time? Oh, we're so good. We were right on. I'm impressed.
Yeah, you did awesome. Perfect timing. Does anybody have any questions for Jonathan and Kylene? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can raise your hand in the chat feature.
So while you guys are thinking about those questions, we highly encourage you to go to our YouTube channel. It's at The Provident Prepper. We have videos on anything you could want to know. And we just started a new sister channel called The Provident Gardener, because it's really important that we're able to be self-sustaining and to grow some of our own food. And so that one's a super fun one that we just started.
That's awesome. I'm excited to see that.
Know everything?
Or we just totally overwhelmed them.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So there's the common stuff of, what could have you done, what didn't work, and that sort of thing. But what's something that you thought would work, but then when you tried to do it, you were like, oh no, this did not go as planned.
Okay, there were two things.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the first one was the flame thing.
Yeah.
We thought candles and all this was just such a great option. And then my wife and my kids were sticking sticks in there and things. And
I wasn't doing that time. He was at work. How would he know? I was freezing at home.
But that was one of them that we thought, hey, this is a great solution. It wasn't a great solution. It
Wasn't
wasn't.
all.
And then we thought about it more and the potential for, problems and creating a bigger disaster from the current disaster. So we've gone to pretty much no
Yeah.
open flame, only the buddy heater. We do use that and the alcohol cooking and
Yeah,
that kind of
the
thing. But
cooking will use an open flame, but not for lighting sources.
yeah,
Another thing was the windows. Like I had measured all the windows, I'd cut out all this cardboard and I taped them and I had them stored under the bed. I'm like, this is really smart. And it just made everything so dark, so dark. And then I had several projects planned for while we were doing this. And literally, I could not be productive. Dark is depressed, dark and cold, the combination, it just wasn't good. And so I think I wasn't prepared to handle that. So and the kids were so good. I
they
mean,
were very resilient.
and it didn't matter that like they didn't have TV or anything like that. They were totally just fine. But we played lots of games, but yeah, so those are three of the lessons. And I like when I got hypothermia, I was shocked. And I was shocked that I didn't realize that's what was going on for quite a while. Like I, I look back now and I think, Kylene, you, that was not smart. You were going to have a wet head. You know the facts. You know this. And yeah, I got myself into a bad situation and I should have known better. So those are some of the things.
Eileen, I had to step away a minute for a phone call, but
Hi.
did you mention anything about I have foam pads. Some are thinner than others, but a lot of them are inch and a half, 2 inches on every bed in my house. And I didn't know if you had talked about maybe taking those foam pads off and using them as insulation, maybe in your tents or putting them around you as you slept, because that foam, like you mentioned earlier, is such a wonderful source of holding that heat into our bodies.
It is
And
amazing.
we didn't talk about that, but that is certainly a great option. And in these kinds of situations, especially if you haven't thought about it, you have to be quick about thinking, okay, what are my resources? And that would be a great resource if you have that any kind of insulation that you could help keep yourself warm.
So
Thank you.
We talked a little bit about like the Game Changer and Jim Phillips foam clothing and stuff. And on our personal bed, we have foam because okay, if you're storing it for emergencies, where do you store it?
Right.
And so ours, it's actually on our mattress underneath the sheet, right? And we sleep it. It makes it a little bit more nice and soft, but then we also have it when anything happens and it's right there in place. So that's a great option. And I totally would encourage you guys to check out the Game Changer because being thermal neutral, it is so nice. Anybody else?
Yeah, Jonathan, are you familiar with the insulation product Reflectex, Reflectix?
I'm familiar with one that my father-in-law was a contractor and he wanted to put that in our attic in our previous house. Is that the kind of material you're talking about?
Yes, it's bubble pack and it's aluminum
Yes.
on both sides, and it's kind of the duct tape of insulation. And
Yeah.
I know Mylar doesn't work, but Reflectex actually does, and it has 1,000 uses. And it in two houses prior, I put it in the attic and the basement and the walls, different places, and we reduced our energy bill by half. And
That's
also, we
awesome.
had skylights, and on very hot days in the summer, I put it in the skylights, and I also built French doors that swung out and would close them. And we barely used our air conditioning, whereas people around us had their air conditioning on 24/7.
What a
And
great
it's just a
idea.
wonderful product.
Yeah, there's a lot of great products and a lot of great ideas for these kinds of things. And then in addition to the commercial products, and again, I'd refer you to that website where you can look at all those incentives. And there's sometimes you can get like utility companies will help you out a lot, but there's all these kinds of things that you can think about and do. Great, great. So thank you.
And they have the good thing about their website is they're very good about providing instructions for how to do everything. And the wonder of it is that you just need a staple gun to install it. And I've
Yeah.
always hated the pink cotton candy because I grew up in Ambler, Pennsylvania, and it's a super fun site because Keithby and Madison used to have this massive pipeline of asbestos. We used to actually sled on it as kids. We had no idea it was as dangerous as it was.
Right.
And a lot of the old Italian immigrants they brought over all died of leukemia. And so I was always looking for an alternative to the pink cotton candy. And Reflectex has really worked for me on 3 different houses.
Nice. Nice. Thank you for sharing.
Hey, Kylene and Jonathan, there's a question in the chat. Somebody wants to know, what if you didn't have water? What would you do?
That's a good point. And that happened in the polar vortex. There were people that, the water lines froze. They didn't have water. We talked to some who actually went out and got snow and melted it. Not a super efficient process. But, if that's what you've got to do, then that's what you do. Hopefully, we're all storing water in our homes such that we have that ready for these kinds of things. If you don't, yeah, I mean, you can do the snow thing, but
Store water.
not
Gotta have
ideal.
water.
Storing water is just a really great idea. And there's we've got some videos on how to do that. So check those out. There's a lot of ways you can do it very inexpensively. Obviously, there's ways that you can do it very expensively, but the important thing is to do it one way or the other. However you can do it, you can do it almost basically free or basic. Yeah.
So if you can use repurposed like soda containers or juice bottles, you have to be careful and you have to make sure that you're filling them with water from a chlorinated supply. And if you can afford it, there's things like the Rockwell tanks. And I know we've got a new setup that we just did that has 750 gallons of water that goes right through our house. Like, so the city water goes off. All we have to do is flip a switch and we use our other water. That's not possible for a lot of people. It's only possible for us because what we do for a living, right? But there's a lot of different ways. But water storage to me is huge. Remember we talked about the rule of threes and water. 3 days without water, you have to have water. So for me, that's a huge storage item.
And in many cases, you don't even have that 3 days in a really hot environment.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, let us really emphasize however you can store water, make sure that you do. That is so, so important.
Remember that on the TACDA survival store, there's water bricks, and
Mhm.
they're a miracle. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, you can store them under the bed, you can store them in the closet. They have a faucet. You can bring one into the kitchen, one into the bathroom, and take care of all your needs in a power outage.
Yes.
So nice,
Yeah.
huh? I love the spigots. I love the
Yeah.
spigots.
Yeah, and then the hole in the middle where you can stick it in your freezer. And if somebody in your house needs to keep their medicine cold, like insulin, you could just pull it out of the freezer and keep the medicine cold for them.
Yeah.
That's great. I hadn't thought about that.
Good idea. So what about when you close off rooms? This is another question from the chat. When you close off the room so you keep one room warmer than the others, is there a risk of pipes freezing and breaking in the other rooms?
There definitely can be.
Absolutely.
Obviously, depending on the construction of your house and how well your pipes are insulated, and how long this goes on. If this goes on a long time, you may need to actually drain your water system. I mean, if this is an EMP and the grid is down and it's not coming up for a long time, you may need to just drain all the water out of your house. You need to know where to do that. Find your lowest spot and where you can drain that water from your system so that you don't break all those pipes once you get your service back, and then you find out that pipes have split all over the place and you've got a total mess.
I think that's a really good place to be proactive. And we talked about preparing your home. So in one of our previous neighborhoods, they ran the pipes through the attic. And so people's pipes, when it froze, the pipes would freeze and break. So if you know that you have a situation like that, you can insulate them in advance. You can be proactive. And even though it might cost some money, if you are proactive, then you don't have to worry as much about that if you can make some changes so that you'll be okay. But that's a great
that's another
question.
use for Reflectex. It's very easy to wrap pipes with Reflectex, and they have aluminum tape that they sell. I've done that with many pipes and wrapped them. And the nice thing about that
Awesome.
is
Good
it
point.
maintains, yeah, it's a steady temperature. It keeps it, as long as it's wrapped, it'll maintain that steady temperature, and you shouldn't get broken pipes.
Oh, that's
Jonathan,
awesome.
did you have any concern after insulating everything? Of course, you're going to have a lot of breathing through your tents, but that there could be some carbon dioxide issues just because we're not getting enough oxygen in there. Do you leave a little flap open, or does the tent breathe enough? But of course, if we insulate it too much, we probably need to keep that in mind.
Yes,
No,
yes,
you're not
definitely.
closing off entrances and exits. You're just insulating the pipe.
I meant in our tents when the kids were
Yeah.
sleeping.
Oh, wow.
Talking about
Okay.
setting up that tent. Not super concerned about that. There's enough air exchange there, but in our homes, definitely. I mean, if we're all closed up for several days or a week or two, we can deplete the oxygen in there. Normally, we've got oxygen at 21%. OSHA says when you get to 19.5, you're starting to be in trouble. And of course, most of us don't have the tools to measure that, but we kind of feel it.
Sure.
We kind of feel, we're feeling lethargic. We're feeling.
Yeah, it would be good along with the symptoms of hypothermia that we look and talk about the symptoms of a problem with CO2.
Yes, yes.
And see, in our family, we have enough little kids that are always going in and out. There's always air.
The doors are open, closed. But I just,
oh my goodness.
I was just thinking about my pads in the bedroom, and I thought if I insulated that tent too much, I might end up with the CO2 problem.
Yeah, most of those tents, like you can't see that on the little kids' tent, but there's like a rain fly up there, and at the very top, it's actually not sealed.
Sure.
So you've got plenty of air exchange inside that tent.
But again, we're trying to find that balance, right? Obviously, we don't want to let too much cold air in, but obviously we need to let enough in so that we keep our a decent oxygen level, above 20, or we start having problems. So that is definitely something.
Because when you're sealing off a room, and you don't want to let any of the heat out, how often would you open a door or a window, and then for how long to refresh your air without letting too much heat out?
Yeah.
It all depends. Yeah, all depends on the size of the room, the height of your ceiling, right? What it is that's going on. And if you ever start feeling dizzy or sleepy, that's a sign that you've got to ventilate, right? Or a headache.
A headache is a great canary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is that balancing act, and it's really hard to know exactly how to hit that just right. But that is the goal, and I wish it was easier than that. But you just kind of have to make sure that there is, and when you're closing off just a small room, that's going to, you're going to use that oxygen up faster than throughout your whole house. So
especially with the wood burning stove, you're going to use it up real fast because wood burns
with
a lot
anything
of oxygen.
Anything else using oxygen. Yes, exactly right. We're accelerating that process.
You mentioned the Vesta heater cooker. Can that be used
so cool.
inside?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It is designed for indoor use.
Chafing fuel. Chafing fuel.
The one thing that I would say about that is that you can get other fuels that are like the safe heat that would fit in there that may not be able to be used indoors. If you're burning it indoors, I would only use safe heat. It's a chafing fuel and it's designed for indoor use. So
and it's called safe heat?
It's called safe heat.
Okay.
And like I said, Sam's Club has it. That's the cheapest place to buy it, but that is an amazing tool. Like just amazing. The first time that I used it, I'm just like, this is a miracle. Yeah. This is an answer for people who live in apartments. For less than $200, you can have all of your heating and cooking taken care of for a short period of time, right?
They come in flats of 12 and they're just very compact. They stack neatly. They're safe to store. I recommend that for everybody. That is just such an awesome tool
Did you
And
to
it's
mention
have.
the shelf life on that?
so according to the company, they have a 10-year shelf life. But because it's an alcohol-based product, as long as it's stored closed, right? And upright, it should last longer than that. We've had it for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
And some of ours is just fine. Um, we just, in a video that we just did a couple days ago, we were cooking all these beans, and I was shocked because we did the Vesta, but we used a stovetop pressure cooker on top of it to cook the beans, and it worked. The only thing that worked better than that was actually the
power station,
power
with
station.
the Instant Pot.
But it was so easy because you use those, and once you're done, you just cap that, or you just put the cap on it, you smother the flame, you wait for it to cool, and then you close the lid, or else it'll create a vacuum, and that lid's super hard to get off. But all you have to do is light it and slide it in there. It doesn't get easier than that. I mean, so easy, and it
And a
it
small
really works
pressure
well.
cooker would be such a nice tool to have.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we recommend
We love
everybody use a pressure cooker or an Instant Pot and have the ability to fuel that, because they cook so much faster. And sometimes those old beans don't soften very well, but the pressure cooker does it every
Yeah,
time.
every
So
time.
That's a good idea. Speaking of food, I was wondering, are there any specific food or drinks that actually help the body stay warmer?
Anything that's a liquid that you're taking in
Mm,
that's warm. So
okay.
whether it's hot
But
cocoa
nothing
or
like no
soup or chili.
specific. Okay.
Go ahead.
Maybe something that's a little
Well, okay.
spicy.
I think
I
spicy
love
might help you
spicy. Yeah.
feel warm. I think that would
But
help.
not
But
actually
if
warm.
this is the time when you need to eat more protein, more carbohydrates, right? Because those will help your body be able to fuel you better.
Okay.
So that Snickers
Mhm.
bar at this point is
Mhm.
a really good idea.
Great. Protein and carbs.
Oh, one more question I saw in here. I think you might have already touched on it. Could be wrong. A follow-up question was, would there be issues? This is in reference to lack of water. Would there be issues with a chemical or gel toilet if things were really, really cold?
Oh, I don't know. Like I just I mean, if you're at freezing temperatures, but the or the fluid that's in it, I don't know. I haven't experimented with that.
That's a great
Sorry.
question.
That's a great
We'll
question.
have to do some research on that.
Thank you, Parker. I didn't see that one. And by the way, everyone, Parker is a co-host tonight, and he is a new member of the TACDA board.
Welcome, Parker.
Come to Parker.
Good to be here. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was fantastic.
You're
Oh.
very welcome.
Definitely fantastic. Does anybody have any other questions? Otherwise, we can get ready to close.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here, guys.
Yeah. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
all that you do. Thanks for being part of the solution. That's our motto, and we mean it, because you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. And as preppers, we are part of the solution for ourselves, for our families, and for others. So let's use that as our motto and move forward.
That's a great motto. Well, thank you for coming. We really appreciate you spending your time and giving us your expertise, sharing your information
Welcome.
with us. So fun to have you. I hope that we can have you again soon in the future. For everybody else, we put a few things in the chat for some helpful links that you can refer to. And as always, we hope to see you at tacda.org. And Jonathan and Kylene would love to see you on their channel, The Provident Prepper, The Provident Gardener, theprovidentprepper.org. So thank you again, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your support. Have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.